All right, welcome everybody to Designing in Color, turning the stage over tonight to a fabulous uncontested conversation with Chicago's own Queering the Parks. We have three illustrious youth here who are really founding members and leaders of their group and their initiative to bring queer accepting space that is joy affirming and just overall really empowering to the Parks of Chicago through the Parks District. How we've gotten here, that's been exciting over the last couple of months. We've had a conversation between Naji Sirsi and our DCO team as a Chicago Parks District liaison and adult accomplice. And today, as we give the youth voices and the queer youth voices with us the floor, just want to give a nod to both Naji and Irina, also who have been instrumental in getting us to this point. Really excited. Give you guys a second if you'd like to say something.
So excited to be here with everyone. Thank you to Designing in Color and Brian and our Queer Youth Committee at Queering the Parks. I won't take up too much space. Just want to say it's an honor to be here with everybody in the room. And I'm super looking forward to this conversation.
Same, ditto. Really grateful, really humbled, and just here to listen and support. Thank you all so much.
Awesome. Well, we're very lucky this evening too to have Campbell Simmons with us. Campbell's a recent graduate of Tufts University. She studied environmental sustainability, policy, equity, and English with a focus on justice literature. So while at Tufts, she spent the days at the Tufts Women's Center, helping peers learn about Black and queer feminist issues. Originally, she's from California, but takes a really special interest in equity issues surrounding forest management and conservation. And today is the Equity and Justice Intern for the Wilderness Society in San Francisco, making organizations that are more an equitable place. So really excited to have her here to give us a little facilitation between where we are, where we were, and where we're going around queer and youth space. So Campbell, so happy to have you. Thank you so much. We will turn the floor over to you at this point.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that intro, Brian. Yeah, I'm Campbell Simmons, and I use she and they pronouns. And I really am excited to kind of pass over the mic to Maria, Edwin, and Kazi here. And I would love to have you three start by giving a quick little intro with your name, your pronouns, your neighborhood, and how you became involved with Queering the Parks, and something you found recently that intrigued you, or something that you learned recently. Maria, would you like to start?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Maria. I use she, her pronouns. I am one of the, again, lead youth committee members for Queering the Parks. I am located on the south side of Chicago, specifically Gage Park. I've been doing this for almost, 2 years, going to 3, And I'm really excited to be here.
And something that you learned recently that you found intriguing.
Oh, something that I've learned recently. There's a lot. I can't really pinpoint one.
That's okay. You can think on it.
Yeah. Something that I learned recently. There's a lot. I really can't pinpoint right now. So if I do come up with something, I'll share later.
Cool. Move on. I see Edwin next on my screen.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Edwin. I'm from the south side of Chicago. I'm from Fuller Park, but I'm kind of all over the place. I lived in Marquette Park for a while, but I grew up in Fuller Park, and I just moved to Bronzeville, so it's gonna be my home for a while. It's something I found interesting, and I don't know why. It's my look today. I have this eyeliner. I don't know. I feel like it's supposed to be like really important, but like this is just something I found intriguing. Like I just thought it was a neon eyeliner, and then I found out it was like UV reactive. So to this little look that I'm wearing today.
I love that look. It's so cool. Yeah, Kazi, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Kazi. My pronouns are ze, them, theirs, and they, them, theirs. I'm from Beverly on the south side, and something that I've something that I have learned recently is that there's this species of bugs. I know bugs are gross, but it's related to silverfish, and they have a third filament on the end of their tails that typically isn't related to most other insects, and it dates back millions of years. So that's interesting to me.
That's fascinating. I would not have known that. But yeah, cool. So I understand that you guys have some images to show so that we can start talking about some events that you guys have done with Queering the Parks and all the different work that you've put in.
Sure. Well, I think primarily our video seems to really represent everything that we've done over the past few years.
It's different because youth don't really have like resources to start their own programming, and are told that they don't have the knowledge or the skills yet to do anything as big as this, which is not true. As long as they have the resources and people that are supporting them, they can do whatever they want.
The targeted number is 150, but I think it's going to be double the number.
It's important for places like the Park District to think about how we create welcoming spaces for all people. And so this initiative is a way for us to really pull back the curtain and say this is a space for everybody. And I think the fact that we've been able to work with young people in particular has been really powerful for them to see the power that they have to organize and come together to create spaces that celebrate who they are.
I would definitely consider this event to be successful, considering the fact that we had not only had like a huge turnout, all of the artists that were supposed to perform got a chance to perform, and that was really important to me because it was so important for me to have queer artists be exposed to the mainstream public. I am looking forward to doing hundreds of Queering the Park events. You know, I'm looking forward to planning events and making them happen the way I want them to happen, and I'm looking forward to being the catalyst that connects queer artists to the public. That's what I'm looking forward to.
So good, like I feel so good, like it makes me warm inside that I did this, and you know, it's inspiring.
I think having spaces for Black and brown queer youth is so important, and to have those be public spaces funded by tax dollars is crucial. And everyone's having so much fun tonight, and I couldn't be prouder of the young people and what they've been able to achieve.
This is honestly something that is so inspiring that other people should take account of and plan otherwise other places in Chicago.
That was such a beautiful video. But yeah, that was incredible. And clearly you all put in a lot of work into making that event happen. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about the challenges that went into making that event happen and what it felt like seeing it become a reality.
I could go first. So some of the challenges that we faced along the way were that sometimes adults within the Park District, especially places where we would want to plan our events, they would kind of not take us seriously sometimes. I don't know, maybe because we were just, you know, youth. Sometimes when we would speak out on something, it was kind of brushed off. I mean, which is like normal, like adultism is real. Adults speaking for kids is also real, which is, I mean, it's now, I guess it's like a norm these days. I think that was like one of the biggest kind of challenges we were facing. But otherwise, besides that, we always made it possible to work with what we had. And at the end of the day, we actually like left a big impact for not just us, but for everyone. So I think to me, that was really important.
And then I would say like another contrast to that is like a lot of these spaces aren't prepped for queer people and specifically queer youth. So there's these ideas that are like important to queer people, such as gender neutral bathrooms, or not hanging a Columbus painting in the middle of an event meant for BIPOC and queer people, and having to explain that to adults, like their adultism really shined through. But it also really allowed us to introduce a lot of training. And these trainings were led by our adult accomplices, but also other youth members. And it just really brought a change that we didn't think we would see.
I'm trying to think of something at the moment. It's gone in my head by like millions of things. We always talk about this. But I think that was one of the main things, especially going to those spaces. I think another one was just not a challenge, but also, yes, in a good way. It was to make sure that we knew those neighborhoods were. I mean, as you can see, most of the youth committee is from the South Side, but it was still like there's different culture in each different neighborhood, and we wanted to make sure we were respecting those neighborhoods. So we kind of did a little research. We'd have a little like, what would it be called? Like walking around the neighborhood, seeing what it's like, passing out posters and flyers, all the types of stuff. But it was just trying to make sure we knew what we were, canvassing, going into, and understanding like culture of the neighborhood. Yeah.
Awesome. And we have a quick question from Opalia. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Asking to define adultism, if one of you wants to give that a go.
Sure. So adultism is really just like any other systematic form of bigotry or discrimination, but really just relates more to age. It's this idea that youth, and specifically those under who are still dependable in tax forms and other systems, are not able to make decisions for themselves because either they are uneducated or unexperienced compared to quote unquote their superiors, which are the adults. So it really shines through with, in some cases, such as like an intern or a youth intern and a coworker who's older, ideas get shot down, or it can even go as to parents and children, and the complex relationship with that is just really about like this assumption that youth are not able to do things because they are younger.
Thank you. That's an excellent definition. Yeah, and adultism specifically feels particularly relevant right now because I feel like there's so many youth leaders in the world who are just kind of constantly getting spoken over. And I really appreciate that way of putting it. And yeah, so I'd love to open up the conversation a little bit and talk about what has been done so far with queering the parks and what you feel needs to still happen for the young queer community.
Sorry, go ahead, Edwin.
You can go, it's okay.
Well, I was just gonna add that as of right now, well, because of the pandemic, I believe, it did affect everyone, but with our group and what we wanted to accomplish, we wanted to make other big spaces for other queer youth all over Chicago, not just more on the south and west side. We wanted to expand our project, what we wanted to advocate for and put it more out there. As of right now, We do have a podcast that is virtual. We are doing that by ourselves. But it does kind of, sometimes we are at a position where we can't really do everything we wanted to do because of the pandemic, and we just want everybody to be safe. But yeah, for right now, we're just trying to market and just put our voices more out there to be heard.
That makes a lot of sense. I think that's how a lot of people are having to react in the reality of the Zoom world now. Edwin, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I was just gonna list off some of the pre-COVID events we had, because that's how I got introduced to it. They were it's so funny, like looking back at it, all those stuff, and like brought back so many memories. Because like when we were first, when I first signed up for it, they gave us like a list of these events that we'd work on. It was 3 main ones, and they were so different from what they came out to be, which is so like cute to see. But yeah, our first one was in the month of June, and it was our family barbecue. And then we had another one, which I think was in August. I'm not so sure. But it was our queer pool party, and it was so fun. It's so weird because I know people from that video that I did not know were there. So like seeing them, I'm like, we've crossed paths before. Like, what? That's crazy to see that like that event brought people that I know now, and I didn't meet them there. It's literally crazy. And October, we had, not October, that was November. November was our masquerade ball, and it was really cute, really fun. That was our last one.
That's so exciting to see people kind of repeat in the past, and you didn't even realize that you had those connections. Yeah, and that's how you know that you can continue to like foster those relationships as well, that your paths will cross again. So I also am just wondering if you guys could do any kind of event that you wanted to do, what would you do, right, without COVID, let's say? And then, well, actually, let's start like with COVID. What could you do? What would you do right now if you had kind of unlimited resources? And then outside of COVID, what would you do?
I had an idea. We talked about it like once, but having like a whole bunch of things, you know. We aren't talking about a certain thing, which Kazi would be kind of in the lead of that project. But it was just kind of having like making sure that queer people in specific, especially because COVID has hit queer people really hard towards like sex work, performers. It's like COVID kind of made us disposable, and we lost our jobs like that, and a tough year for a lot of queer people, and tough as I can't even describe it. But you know, we want to have these resources for especially youth and just whoever can get like to this place, and then they can get like kind of like other, I don't know, just places where they can get like food, clothing, resources, stuff like that. Like I'll call it a hot site. That's not what they're called, but I'll call it a hot site. You know what I mean?
So yeah, that is like one of the main things I want to do, like resource fairs. I really like congregating information and then sending it out to people. But I think like a dream, if unlimited resources, to blow it up is just to like not force it, but also force it into the public schools in Chicago to like make sure that the youth are getting it directly. The schools have to set it up, and that way there's no miscommunication, there's no missing out, because it's at your school and it's always available. It just makes it easier and more widespread.
Yeah, so as of right now, COVID, like I mentioned before, we have a podcast, and something that we work really hard right now, and it's like, I don't know, it's just something that we have fun doing as well. In the works of right now, we're trying to have a resource fair and try to have queer people around Chicago come and like get tested for HIV and possibly COVID. We want to also try to have this resource fair either virtual. We're still talking about it, but as of now, we want to have virtual, and then sometime in the future, maybe we could have it outdoors. But yeah, we're just trying to have like precautions and just be safe. So
That's really a wonderful dream. And I love your ideas. You're just clearly like working really hard and you understand the needs of your communities, which is really wonderful to see, especially with people so young. And it's like, because you guys, you're leading this, you really are. But yeah, so I wanted to also talk about some more like conceptual stuff. So like safety, and what does that mean to you? And what does that look like to you?
Yeah, so I can headstrong this. I think safety is really, first is like emotional safety, then mental safety, physical safety. They're all very important and equally important. So for emotional safety, it's really about that respect aspect, respecting pronouns, respecting space, boundaries, ensuring that like if I'm having a conversation with someone else, I'm not arguing about the humanitarian rights or their rights to humanity, their rights to equality and equity. Simple, point blank period. It's the easiest thing to do. And then for mental safety, ensuring that I'm not trying to be triggering to any past, always being in trauma informed and active to learning about other people and their own special needs. And then physically is obviously the most that we can conceptualize. So respecting physical boundaries, as well as not being harmful to each other.
yeah, so when we were doing our events, we always made sure that everybody who came was safe, were safe, comfortable. That was our number one thing. And we wanted to provide them like a meditation space. So if they ever felt just like not ready or not easy, we just wanted to provide that space for them to just relax, be calm. That was like Kazi had mentioned, like mental health and just all these things are important to us, and it's not something that we always brush over. No, it's something that we always think about before planning our next events, or just something to keep people comfortable and just
Yeah, our events are always like safety is one of our biggest priorities. Even down to picking where we're gonna have this event at. If we really, really like this one place, but maybe there's not somewhere to get like their transportation easily, we're probably gonna prioritize the one where people can get to the easiest, because you know, queer people, I don't know, it's just like if I were a queer person going to an event and I were to get ready, I wouldn't want to walk to this event. I'd be scared because I'd be in an area that I don't know. I will openly being queer, walking to this event. So usually those like things, so many aspects of our events have like safety in mind. My peers already just kind of ran through those already, but just, yeah, I wanted to put that as safety.
Yeah, absolutely. You all spoke to some very real things there. I really appreciate those answers. And yeah, and I also wanted to make sure that anybody who's not a part of the trio in the audience is welcome to throw questions in the chat or anything like that. And yeah, I also want to know what autonomy meant for you guys and what follow through execution means when you're trying to make things happen. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So autonomy, I think that one will be the easiest. So first off, like our group is set up with a handful of adult accomplices and then a handful of youth. We had more youth in the past, but you know, people grow and expand and life moves on. So for autonomy, we as youth really work with the help of our adult accomplices. So we come up with the ideas and they help with the execution, ensuring that we are doing everything that we can properly and with everything in budget and within budget, as well as ensuring that it's all realistic. And I think the strangest part is like, since we're under Chicago Park districts, we have to follow their regulations sometimes. So we're not always allowed to do everything that we want to, even though we know that what we would do would be the better option. And it's just really about, we have to form our autonomy to pivot around that regulation. So we literally just swerve as much as we can to ensure that everything gets done properly.
Especially like Kazi had mentioned, there was times where we wanted to do something and we just couldn't because there was rules to follow. And one specifically that I remember is like in the video, another committee member, Shane, who isn't a part of us, but hopefully one day we'll be back. Shane had mentioned that they just wanted queer artists to be known and be heard. When we brought this up to the Chicago Park District, they immediately told us like, hey, like they can say whatever they want, they just can't curse. And Edwin, I always remember this, and Edwin had said, well, you're basically telling them not to be queer, which is so important because what we wanted to do was emphasize queer voices, queer artists, everything that we advocate for. We just wanted to be heard. And for the Chicago Park District to sometimes shut out our ideas or just tell us not to do something, we kind of felt like, you know, in a way like that was bogus. But like Kazi had mentioned, we made it work. Anything that came our way, we made it work. And it was either like better than ever or we just had a really good time.
Yeah, those are one of the things of the execution, which like we want to do something and then, you know, darn Park District gets in our way. And so yeah, no, they were like, you can't use glitter, you can't use any like loose things. And I think they're trying to enforce like a dress code too, not on all of us, but specifically performers. And I think I may be wrong, but I was just like, well, I was like, just let them perform. They're gonna have like 10 minutes or something to perform. Is 10 minutes gonna kill you that someone's being openly queer? So it was just really bothersome. And we got to work with it. And that's why our other Shane used to work with us. They had said in the video, every performer got to perform tonight, which was like, that is a big statement. It is a big statement because that's so important that like you have these list of performers, they show up and they like perform, and that's so beautiful to me.
Yeah, that's huge. And especially like finding all those little roadblocks when working with the Parks Committee and everything like that. It's difficult to work with, but yeah, I deeply resonate. It seems like that happens a lot. And I just kind of want to let you guys have talk about, you know, have a little bit of a conversation about what kinds of conversations you are having like daily that you feel need to be addressed more broadly, that you feel like aren't really being heard, that are maybe huge in your communities, but then aren't being brought to light.
Totally. I would say the first thing that came to my head was that not that conversations that we were having to people around us, but the conversations that we had with each other. I remember there was one meeting we just sat down and talked about the diversity of sexuality and gender, and how, you know, sometimes people don't really within the community don't understand other sexualities because it's not something that they feel like they have to understand. But forming that solidarity of like, I'm learning about you and you're learning about me is always important. So I carry this little booklet of, it was just a dictionary of just queer terms, and it's like, what is it? It's from A to Z. And it's like an LGBTQ plus term book. I don't know if I have it. I don't think I have it on me, but I brought that to the meeting and we just sat down and just talked about these wide spectrums and really got to learn with each other about the people within our own community that we might not see every day.
Yeah, so how Kazi had mentioned, that was really important. During starting off our podcast, something that spoke to us was the Black community and what was going on at the time and everything that terrible that happened. And we just really wanted to speak out for them and like make their voices be heard. So when we first created the podcast, we didn't know if we wanted to be like, I guess, deep, like going into conversations, or be super lighthearted. But at the same time, like we didn't care for that, and we just wanted to talk about topics that were important, and especially at the time it was Black trans lives. And when we started first recording the first pilot episode, that was something that we touched base on and wanted to make sure that we touched on everything that was going on, especially in the Black community, because it's important. And when we also started like the Chicago Park District Queering the Parks Committee, we wanted Black and Brown queer youth to be heard, and so that's why we based our events around those areas. So
yeah, no, we have this platform. I have a platform. I think everyone does, no matter how many like followers or people might be listening to you, you're always going to have some sort of platform. And when you speak up, that could, what is it, a butterfly effect or like a domino effect? I don't know, I'm telling you, my peers, they're really amazing. They kind of just said everything.
Yeah, Kazi, you looked like you were really resonating with that if you wanted to add anything. But yeah, so I want to go with Opelia's question. What advice would you give queer youth in other cities to emulate your mission in their city?
Go ahead, Kazi. I'm gonna go on a rant, so you can go ahead.
I have a pretty short one, if anything. Fuck some shit up. Fuck some shit up. I don't know if I can curse, but I just did. So, draw over the lines,
And I was just gonna say, create your own uncontested space, because you can't trust anyone else to do it for you. And make sure you're banding with your other fellow queer people, because they're gonna want to be closest to you and understand the most. So create your own space, period.
Yeah, basically touched on what I was going to say, but most importantly, just don't be afraid. Like, I know it's going to be scary at first because you're going to think that nobody's going to take you seriously or that's going to be a joke, but it's not. It's really important. Like, everything around the queer community, everything around what we advocate for is really important, and you just shouldn't be afraid. So anything helps, anything, starting like podcasts or talking to other peers about what's important and just sharing that, marketing yourself, trying to post stuff on social media. That's really important. But yeah, I'd say just don't be afraid and just do it.
I'm wondering how you all overcame that fear to kind of create your own space.
We luckily had some really amazing adult accomplices, like literally just the loveliest. They're very selfless at times, and I love that about them. That shows like that's just such a good adult like ally who's just very selfless within themselves to like make sure that youth are being looked out for, can be heard, have a space, and get what they need. So we have some really amazing adult accomplices. Love y'all.
Yes, that. And also I would say I personally had some like trauma, because I go to private school now, but before I went to public school, and it was just a very different environment around talking about queer subjects. So when you end up being the only openly queer person in your 7th and 8th grade, no one tells you this, but 13-year-olds are mean for no reason. And it was just a lot, but I think I really learned from that trauma to not give an F to anyone. So I'm ended up being very open, and as well as like confronting even to those who are older than me, which I really got to use in this community and in this group of Queering the Parks, which I'm very appreciative of.
I was literally just talking about this yesterday. I was like, middle schoolers are fucking vicious. No one's told me if we can curse yet, so I'm gonna continue to curse. I'm so sorry, but they're vicious. And I've been to public school. High schoolers are also vicious. Anyone under 18, they're vicious, but we're cool too.
Yeah, yeah. With that, I think to not be afraid. I mean, honestly, there's times where I kind of am. But at the same time, like that fear goes away immediately because I know that, like Edwin had mentioned earlier, I have so many adult accomplices around me who support us, who support me, who understand what we're going through, what we want to talk about, which is so cool because you don't meet adults who want to take you seriously or want even to listen to you. So I appreciate them so much. Sometimes like the fear comes where, because well, it's like a personal thing, but I mean at the same time I'm open about this. I still haven't come out to like anyone, like only these beautiful people right here, which is something that I kind of overcome. Like the fear's there and then it goes away because I know there's people that understand and there's people that accept me for me, which is really cool. So yeah.
I love that. And that honestly is very much relatable to me. And I feel like they're the people that I'm out to, and then there's like the few people that I still haven't like done that with. And I'm like, wow, it's one little missing piece, but it's huge to have a community in that way. And that really leads into Ruben's question as well. How have you been practicing self-care while dealing with the difficulties of navigating city districts and jurisdictions?
Okay, I would say for me, music is I used to DJ, I stopped DJing because I got too bored. But typically I like to listen to indie music because you gotta stay quirky on the beat. And so Phoebe Bridgers, Cave Town, Dodie Clark are just like the saviors of my soul, period. So that's what I usually do to self-care, but I'm also an artist. So I have my drawing account that I use to like just draw my feelings away and then post it on the internet and be like, now I don't have to think about that until I want to think about it again. So creativity mainly.
For me, how I self-care, sometimes I just talk to people and I just rant and go on and on and on. Sometimes even if there's nothing to say back, they're always listening, especially the adult accomplices that we work with. They're always around for anything, even if it's just to talk about how our day went and maybe how maybe shitty it was. They're always around to listen. And I think that's important. If like you just need to talk about something, it's important to just say it and not keep it, hidden away. So yeah, that's how I self-care. I just talk. And sometimes if I don't, I just drink a lot of coffee, which I've now found is a problem, but it's all good.
Me personally, anyways, me personally, self-care is, I don't know, it's just doing what you gotta do. Like I left my toxic household and I moved out and I'm like living my life, but also not, but also yes, because now I'm no longer there and I can truly be myself, like openly queer. And I don't know, maybe it's the Mexican in me, like just that they've taught. Like literally, it's just like if you want to take care, if you want to take care of yourself, you gotta push through and you gotta do what you gotta do. Like there were some parts of me where I didn't want to move out, but I was just like leaving my brother. My brother is such a big like support system for me, but it was just not enough. And I have to do things for myself as well that I had to go. That was it. I was like, you got to do things that aren't necessarily going to feel good in order to take care of yourself. And I do other illegal activities for fun that I cannot name for certain reasons. But yeah, also baths. Baths are so good. Oh.
Yeah, I love a good bath and a good illegal activity every now and again. But yeah, that is such a great explanation of self-care. Sometimes you got to do things that are hard, but that are good for you. I really appreciate that. Chris has an awesome question here. What physical spaces are most important for queering the parks, and how can designers create better spaces that prioritize queer space?
Sorry, this one is a good one. All the other questions are really good. This one is a good one. So I think our favorite space, I think of it as QTP's home, even though we haven't been there in a while, is the Union. It's not a Chicago Park District space. It's literally just a collaborative made by queer people for queer people, so period. And they let us plan meetings there, and they've just been amazing people. I hope we can go back someday. But Chicago Park District needs to step up. First of all, why do you have a Columbus Park? I'm sorry, but we don't need settlers who raped and killed indigenous people for the land and then said they discovered the land, period. Get rid of him and stop making us host things and then just because it's Columbus Park. I'm sorry, we don't need it. And what we do need is a Marsha P. Johnson Foundation or park, and we need a Sylvia Rivera Foundation or park, just a space named after a queer person, a queer, trans, BIPOC person who discovered and literally pioneered for our rights of all queer people. And I don't think people really recognize that. And Chicago Park District is so funny. They always want to name a park after some crusty old dude who didn't do anything but be racist. And they hold honor in that. And it's really disappointing and shameful. And they should be ashamed. So I think they need to revamp everything.
I'm just gonna say, like, yeah, go off, Kazi. I mean, they basically said everything that we have to keep, I guess, like, to ourselves. I mean, we also share this information, and sometimes we don't give a crap if, like, the Chicago Park District is listening, because, like Kazi had mentioned, like, they need to step up. Like, this is ridiculous. There's so many parks, and you choose Columbus. Okay, I guess, but yeah.
Absolutely. Y'all are making points. And it looks like Edwin was saying, wink, wink, queering the parks, coming to your local park. Love it. Awesome. And we're getting towards the end here, sadly, but I did want to get what you all think advocacy looks like for youth voices, and for queer voices, and for Black and Brown voices, like in your aspirations.
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of want to say it's everything that QTP is doing. I think I could name other organizations, but QTP comes to mind. I just think that not old people, like adults should just try to understand queers, like queer youth, Black, BIPOC, all these things should try to understand what's going on and the situations that are happening. Just try to understand, and it's not that hard. It's really not that hard. Just educate yourself. It's not that hard. I don't know how else to put it.
So this year at my school, which is PWI, predominantly white school, my institution, excuse me, I started a club that brings together all the other clubs that focus around identity. So Black Student Union, LGBTQ plus affinity, CETA, which is chronic illness and disabilities, et cetera, IFA, Intersectional Feminist Alliance, just to ensure that we create this collaboration through those who are marginalized and also those who are allies, and talk about identity so that we can move forward as like a student body and as a institution, and really make sure that we're progressing. Because what people I think really forget is that just because someone doesn't identify the same way as you does not mean you can't help each other to move to similar goals. And people really forgot about intersectionality. And this idea of that, like, you can help each other even without having the same identity, which really dates back to Frederick Douglass and his fight for Black rights. And he was a feminist and wanted to work with who was it? Not Ida B. Wells, but someone else who had like a middle name that was just like a letter. And she was a feminist, but she was also racist. And in the end, she chose to separate feminism and Susan B. Anthony, thank you. Susan B. Anthony, she chose to separate feminism and the Black community just to ensure that one came over the other. And that's where this operation against intersectionality really is predominant and continues to today. But really, no one can get what they want without working through intersectionality and working with each other to form equality and equity, which equity is what we can do right now since, you know, we're living in a capitalistic society, so there will never be true equality till we abolish that. And that's, no one wants to talk about that, but that is true. And yeah, we just have to work together even across our differences.
Yeah, Irina's making a good point. Let's talk about it. Also, Edwin, I can see you again. I don't know if you're able to speak or not.
Yeah, like I said before, about our adult accomplices, is like selflessness. You really gotta like, it sounds weird, but like lose yourself, I guess, in order to like really be there for these youth and queer people. Because I feel like a lot of the time when selflessness isn't involved in the process, a lot of the time queer people and queer young people look like decorations. We're just there, we're not doing anything, and it's mainly just like, hey, look, we have these people here. So real advocacy looks like, you know, being like, hey, I got the space for you, let me step back, y'all tell me what you want to do and let me help you. So that's what advocacy for me would look like.
I love that description of like decorations. I feel like it's all too often that people are like, oh yeah, come join the conversation, and then it's just like so that you can kind of be there in the corner and like get pointed to as like the diversity points. But so I really appreciate that. Yeah, I was wondering if you had any closing comments. For closing up here soon, but yeah, I wanted to make sure that if you guys felt like you wanted to add anything else, that you had the space to do that.
Sure. I think a lot of the people in the room currently are adult accomplices. So begging you, find the youth around you in your city and do something similar to what we're doing. Encourage the space to be made, period.
Yeah, adding on to that, I kind of just want to say thank you to everybody who joined tonight. It means a lot, especially for us three lead youth committee members. You know, we're just a small group. We want to expand. We want our voices to be heard. So just this amount of like attention means a lot. So thank you.
Yeah, I agree with both of my peers. Make sure, even if you can't hold these spaces, advocate, like show up to these types of events, show some interest in this. Like,
so that's our time for tonight, I believe. But thank you all for sharing. I feel like I learned so much, and I am so grateful that you guys are doing the work that you're doing right now. It gives me a lot of hope, and I know that it gives everybody in this room a lot of hope as well. And thank you all for coming as well.
We, as adult accomplices here, heard your call to action, and we will definitely be, you know, making our voices heard in tandem and aside with you guys. So thank you so much. Always check out the QTP team and continue to push queer and trans goals, especially across America. So thank you so much.